What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Backstage Journal podcast. I'm Rhett Shull. Thanks for joining me today. If you're new here, this is a weekly podcast that lives on the internet, as all podcasts do. And it's basically my chance to sit down and talk with really cool people in the music industry, in the guitar industry, and kind of share other perspectives other than what I get to do on the YouTube channel. All of this does also exist on YouTube on my second channel, Rhett Shull 2. So if you're not subscribed, you can go check it out there. Anyways, I'm really excited about this week's episode. We've got Kenny Greenberg on. Now, if you don't know who Kenny Greenberg is, he's one of these guys who is one of the unsung guitar heroes of the mainly country and blues and I don't want to pigeonhole him. He's just a guitar hero, an unsung guitar hero of the last 30 plus years. He's like Tim Pierce in that way. When you look at his resume and his experience and what he's done and who he's played with and the records he's produced and written, he really is a heavy hitter. Yet not many people outside of Nashville or outside of the guitar community know his name, which I think is not a bad thing, right? I think that's kind of one of the best things about being somebody like that is you get to have all of the perks of having a career in music and creativity without having to deal with the downfalls of celebrity. But maybe that's a whole other podcast. Anyway, the point is, Kenny is one of the guys that I really look up to as a musician and as a guitar player. He is pretty much exactly what I want to be when I grow up. That's like the best way I could describe it. So Tilly and I got to go over to his studio in Nashville a few weeks ago when we were in town, and I got to sit down with him and just talk music and production and gear and everything. You'll hear all that in the interview when we get to it shortly. But he's one of my favorite guests I've ever had on the podcast. And he's one of the people, he's one of those people that it won't be the only time you hear from him or see him on something that I do. He's awesome. Anyways, so let's see what happened this past. I played my first shows of the year this past weekend with Noah Guthrie and Good Trouble. We had 2 shows this weekend in Charlotte and Greenville, and they went off without a hitch. They were really good. We played 2 honky tonks, which if you don't know what a honky tonk is, just finished exporting. I made a Backstage Journal vlog on the experience, and that'll be living on my YouTube channel. But basically the whole idea behind the video is, this is what it's like playing honky tonks. Basically it's a traditional American country western bar. And it was cool. The first place we played was called Coyote Joe's in Charlotte, and it literally was like stepping back into 1974. It's just one of those places, wood paneling all over the walls, a huge dance floor, taxidermied animals and game all over the walls, and neon signs. It was really cool. So the gigs went off great. If you haven't seen the vlog yet, then you should go check it out. It's on the YouTube channel. And now I'm home for a little bit. We the tour schedule, the gigs don't really start up again until April, May timeframe, and then we're into festival season. So, oh boy, can't wait to get rained on again this year. I think I'm actually going to put together like a festival rig this year that's going to consist of one of the modelers, either the Helix or the Kemper. I got a Kemper toaster, a powered toaster head, and I like that because I can run a cabinet on stage. So, and then put together just a small board, basically a rig that will be easy and quick to pack up when the storms come. So, and I don't have to play backline rigs, but that'll be a topic for another day. Let's jump into this week's voicemail. So this is something we do every week here on the podcast. If you want to leave a voicemail, a question, a comment, you can call the Google Voice number 470-222-5851 and leave a question. We've got a couple questions backed up. So usually what that means is we'll probably do some kind of question and answer voicemail episode in a couple of weeks. Yeah, we're definitely going to do that. Tilly and I will sit down and do a Q&A episode. So with that in mind, get your questions in through voicemail for that episode. And let's check out this week's voicemail question.
Hey, Rhett, it's Drew from Spiro, Oklahoma. I had a question. I'm an intermediate level player, and I'm a full-time working dad. Got a big family, but I want to kind of step up my game. You know, I know all the major and minor chords. I know major scales. But my question is, what is the best way to really start up a practice routine for someone like me? I really appreciate it, man. Love the show. Love the YouTube channel. Keep up, man. See ya.
That's a great question, Drew. Unfortunately, I'm probably the least qualified person to ask when it comes to practice schedules or routines, because I am not a creature of routine. Routine, like, I have an irrational fear of routine for some reason. It's one of the main reasons I never was able to hold down like any kind of 9 to 5 or anything like that. I have to do something different every day. And that actually plays into how I practice and play guitar. And it's actually interesting because this topic came up in the interview with Kenny, because he told me he's similar in that way. And he and I found out, practice pretty much the same way, which is we will sit and play along to songs. In fact, yesterday morning, before I started up with, working on YouTube stuff, I sat down here in the basement studio and played for like 2 hours just playing to songs. And for me, I found that that's the best bang for my buck in terms of time invested in practicing something, because it's sort of attacking all of the areas that I need work on the most. I'm not looking up tabs or anything like that. I'm playing by ear, so that's working on my ear training. It's helping me hear stuff and be able to replicate what I'm hearing, which is one of the most important skills you can have as a musician, is a solid ear. Be able to play what you're hearing. Then it's also showing me different approaches. I'm not just transcribing solos and stuff. I was sitting down here playing to some Black Crowes stuff, and the way they're voicing those chords and those riffs are a slightly different approach than I would normally do it. And so it kind of opened my eyes up to a different way of playing. And also on a tone perspective, right? Like trying to emulate some of the different sounds that I'm hearing on these records. So yesterday I was just playing through the Kemper, and I was just perusing through some different profiles that I hadn't checked out before, some of the M-Brit stuff that I've had on my Kemper for years, and I was finding new profiles that I liked and favorited. So you're spending more time on your gear, you're learning your gear better, you're learning your guitar better. It's just time invested on the instrument. So for me, that's really the best way, is sitting down playing songs, because again, as a musician, that's what I'm doing. I'm playing songs, whether it's in a studio setting or on a gig. I don't ever get in a situation where I'm just noodling and playing scales and chords up and down the neck. I'm actually playing songs. So that's my personal way of practicing, and that's the best way I can tell you to practice, is to sit and play songs. So thanks, Drew, for the question. Like I said, get your voicemail questions in for future episodes. You can call 470-222-5851, and we're going to do a Q&A episode here before too long. So, okay, let's jump into the interview with Kenny. I'm really excited. I haven't listened back to this since we actually did it, so it's going to be cool to listen back down to this in the edit. But without further ado, here is Kenny Greenberg. Kenny, thanks for doing this, man.
It's so good to meet you. We've emailed each other a few times because I'm a fan of your show. Your show is kind of like the fresh air of guitar podcasts. So excited to meet you.
Genuinely coming from you, that is very high praise. Like that. So we first got introduced, I think last year sometime, through Matthew Timmons at Novo.
That's right.
Because you have a beautiful Saris J.
And I got that from watching your videos, and I saw the guitar and I listened to how it sounded, and I called Matthew, went down there and played a couple of them. They are fabulous guitars. It's been, from the day I got it, it's one of those guitars that I just pick it up, I play it, and I just keep on playing it.
There's something to them, man. Dennis really, really knows what he's doing. And, you know, I kind of see them as being, and I talk about this all the time, I think Dennis will go down as being one of the greatest guitar designers and builders of all time.
It's just, you know, it's one of those things where it has music inside of it. I just played it right. I took it like the next day, I took it to a session, and it's about all I played the whole session.
Yeah.
Just great sounding instruments.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so let's talk about you for a second. You're a guitar player, which might be a bit of an understatement because you're also a composer, producer, engineer, songwriter, session guitarist, touring guitarist.
Yep.
You've been in Nashville. We were actually just talking about this upstairs. You've been in Nashville for 42 years?
I've been in Nashville as of tomorrow, February 2nd. I will have lived here 42 years. And February 2nd is also my wife's birthday, who I did not know at the time.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
And so what are, just kind of rattle off some of the, you know, a quick resume. What have you done?
You know, I've started out playing in bands. I just moved here and wanted to play guitar, and I'm from Cleveland, and I was living in Louisville, Kentucky, and just playing in a bar band. And me and my best friend that played bass, we moved down here. We had a free place to stay, and I just started playing in bands.
Yeah. And
I was actually playing in a blues band, and we were playing at all the Vanderbilt frat parties, and we were a popular local band. And then the guy, the leader of the band, this guy named Bobby Bradford, he opened his own club out in West Nashville, and we were, of course, the house band. I actually lived at the back of the club and tended bar during the day for the guys that worked at the prison, and it was a crazy scene. And so he turned me on to all these great blues records, and I could, during the day, outside of the lunch hour, I had my amps set up on this little funky stage we played on. I could practice all day and play the records. And but then he decided to start doing songwriter nights.
Yeah.
And I met all these songwriters. I was like 21. And so they would do their demos. And because I was there and a songwriter would play, and I'd say, hey, my amp's here and I'm a guitar player. I would play with the songwriter. He would say, well, I'm going to do a demo in a couple of weeks. It's $25 a song. You want to come play on our demo? I'd play on that, and I'd meet some people in the studio. And that's how I infiltrated my way into the Nashville studio scene. And so I did that, but I was always more of a guy. I was never really a country session guy. I was more of a guy that played in bands and rock bands, and I was producing bands. And then I produced a country artist named Allison Moore, and we had a song and a movie soundtrack that was nominated for an Academy Award. And I from producing her record and playing on it, I got really into the Nashville session world, and I was playing on records by Trisha Yearwood and Garth Brooks, and then Brooks and Dunn, and then from there I started playing on Bob Seger records and Willie Nelson, and just all kinds of stuff. And as Nashville slowly, not all at once, but over a long period of years, slowly exploded into this multi-genre destination.
Yeah.
I began playing on rock and roll records and producing bands, and then lately I've been producing some country records, and I'm working on a couple film scores right now. So
you really are a well-rounded musician. You have done a little bit of, well, more than a little bit. You've done a lot of everything based around creating and playing music live and writing and all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because what I found was that, you know, and I'm so enamored and look up to some of these guys that do 3 sessions a day, 5 days a week. I mean, I've never done that. I've never really been the guy for that. I've always liked to do some sessions, but I want to produce records and I want to play gigs. I love to play live. There's such a, as you know,
Yeah.
as you play live, you know, I've watched you playing live. It's such a great thing. So, and I get juice from each one. Some of the weeks, if I have like 3 weeks, which doesn't happen to me hardly ever, if I have 3 weeks where I have sessions every single day, by the end of the third week, I'm going like, I wish I was doing something else.
Yeah.
You know, it's just how I am.
I feel the same way. And it's interesting. So part of the reason I wanted to sit down and talk with you is, well, not part of the reason. Most of the reason was selfish, because I look at you and what you've done in your career, and you are essentially like a role model for me in what I want to do in my career in music and as a guitar player, because I haven't found one thing that I love to do above all else, even including the YouTube stuff. Like, I can't see myself ever giving up playing live.
It's exactly how I feel.
To go do YouTube or to do session work or writing.
Yeah.
But I don't want to only play live. I also want to produce and write, and I also want to make the videos and the podcast. So I just really wanted to sit down and pick your brain about how you've done all this for 40 years and gotten to where you are, you know?
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So when did you start writing? Was that right when you got into?
No, I did not understand about writing songs. And what happened is that somewhere around the mid 1980s, I got into a band called the King Snakes. And no one knows who we were. We made a record for Curb, but it was this blues slide player, Michael Henderson, who plays every Monday night at the Bluebird.
Yeah.
You've never seen him. He's an amazing slide guitar player. And this guy named Wally Wilson, who's a songwriter at Tree, and this guy named James Stroud, who's a big record mogul producer, but always played gigs.
Yeah.
And so I ended up in a band with these guys, and we played every Monday night at the Bluebird, and we became the band to see. Where on Monday nights, if Bonnie Raitt was in town, she'd be down there hanging out and might set in. Vince Gill was always down there. Billy Gibbons. We play Monday nights, and whoever was around, we were this blues band.
Yeah.
And so so we got a record deal, and we weren't on the road. We were not a road band. We got a record deal on Curb. So we get this record deal, and Wally Wilson and this other guy named Gary Nicholson is a big songwriter, has written a ton of hits. They're both from Texas, and they're about 10 years older than me. They started writing songs for our band, and I had these guitar riffs, you know, and they were saying, well, you should come and write with us, you know, and so I went and wrote with them, and they became mentors to me. And I was probably late 20s at that time. I was in my late 20s, and they really schooled me on how to write songs, because I'd play a lick and I'd say, well, yeah, do I get a third of the song? They said, dude, you need to learn how to write words, you know, or at least understand how lyrics work, because Nashville is a lyric town.
Yeah.
And so you really need to know how lyrics work. So they gave me a book, and I remember the name of it because I've turned a lot of people onto this book. It's called The Craft of Lyric Writing by Sheila Davis.
Okay.
And it is a great, and I think it's a textbook that they probably use at Belmont. And
Yeah, right.
it explains how songs work. So the Wally Wilson and Gary Nicholson, Gary produced some of the Delbert McClinton records that won the Grammys, and he's written hits for everybody from Ringo. He hasn't written hits for Ringo Starr. He's written songs for Ringo Starr all the way to, he had a hit with Vince Gill. And so these guys taught me how to write songs. And so I didn't know how to do it, but hanging out with them, it was just through osmosis. They're sitting there saying, I'd come up with a line, and they go like, it has to rhyme. If it's A, B, then, you know, your line 2 needs to rhyme with line 4. And going, oh.
Yeah.
So I slowly learned this is how songs work. And I think that it's really helped me as a producer and a player as well. because now I know how songwriting works.
Do you think that when you started writing songs, it helped you as a player because you started
Absolutely.
listening to the music differently?
Absolutely. Yeah. How your licks work with the lyric, where to go. If a lyrics is in, I started to pay more attention to what words are saying, which I think a lot of us as guitar players, we're so guitar centric that I'm listening to the licks and the sounds, and I wasn't really listening to lyrics that much. So I really got into lyrics and what they mean, and it really influenced. You want to play something that supports the lyric.
Yeah.
And it was a really big thing for me.
That's a lesson I've learned in the past probably 2 or 3 years. And it came for years. I just thought, I'm 29 now. So my early to mid 20s was like, I don't care about the lyrics, man. Whatever song sing about doesn't matter. I'm just listening to the band. And it was listening to Jason Isbell.
Amazing lyricist.
And Dawes, Taylor Goldsmith from Dawes.
Yeah,
where
incredible.
Those two artists really snapped into focus for me the importance of the lyric to the song.
Yeah.
And I actually made a video about this last year touring with Noah where it was like an overnight thing. I started on stage listening to the vocalist and listening to the song, and I immediately started playing differently. It was just an instant thing. And I think I started playing better, and playing more to the song. It's huge.
I play club gigs with a guy named Pat McLaughlin, and he writes with Dan Auerbach, and he wrote the Yola song that was up for the Grammy. I mean, there's a lot of those are his lyrics.
Yeah.
And he wrote the John Prine songs up for a Grammy last year.
Yeah.
And we play gigs, and I've been playing. It's just it's an occasional casual gig, and but he's a great guitar player. But all of his songs, because he's a lyricist, everything he writes all the parts shift around the words he writes. So I'm playing with him I've been playing gigs with him for 15 years maybe.
Yeah.
Has really influenced how I work with lyrics because I watch him as a guitar player, how he fits stuff into the words that he writes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you realize that the lyric is the most important part of the song, it
really is. Yeah.
It kind of changes your perspective.
It really does. Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to talk about guitar playing for a minute because you play for a sort of known country artist named Kenny Chesney.
Yeah.
Some people know. Technically, as a player, what skill sets do you think young guys who are coming up and want to do like the hired gun touring thing on the road with, whether it's a country act or a singer-songwriter or whatever, what skill sets as a guitarist and a musician do you think are important to really hone in on to land and maintain gigs like that? Well,
as far as a gig, its personality is a big piece of it. You got to be a guy that everybody wants to hang out with, Don't bitch about the hotels. I think it's know the language of the genre that you're in. Like as far as country guitar playing, modern country guitar playing, there's a language to it. There's gear. You have to have the right gear. You got to know the delay tricks. There's if you listen to the modern country records, there's a language to how those guitars work. And I think if you know that, and what I would do if you were really, I'd be playing along to those records.
Yeah.
Or if you're an East Nashville cat and you want to play with Jason Isbell, or you want to play with Tyler Childers or whoever, you learn that language. And that actually is more country than mainstream country.
Right.
You learn the language and the sounds. It's like the sort of nuts and bolts of that. Like for me, I always wanted to be a blues player. Like Jimmy Vaughn was my guy. So I learned the language of all those blues guys because that's really what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's still what I want to do. I don't seem to do that much, but you just learn that language.
Yeah. And that comes from just listening and playing, right?
I think it's from listening to the records. I still like to play along to records. I like to get up in the morning and play along to records. And so you learn the parts, you figure out what the parts are, and then going and seeing those people play and seeing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Or now watch the rig rundown. Like I saw they just have a Tom Bukovac.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the master of gear and effects for modern country. It's all right there,
Yeah, I mean, it's him on most of the stuff out there now,
Yeah.
the modern country stuff. It's
It really
Bukovac,
is, yeah.
Yeah, we met him at Amigos Guitar Show this past summer, and
Yeah.
I was like kind of wigged out, starstruck. being
Very
with the first-
charismatic character.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God. That's really cool, man. So you mentioned the personality thing. This has been a common thing that has come up in recent in podcasts. I interviewed Rod Castro, who plays for Beyonce and TLC, and he's an LA cat, and he said the exact same thing. So I kind of want you to elaborate on that a little bit.
You just, and really the session thing is the same thing. It's like the session thing and playing live, it's really a similar as far as your attitude. You're there, it's a service industry. Actually, Tom Bukovac said that. That's a quote I'm stealing from him. He said one time, it's a service industry, bro. It is. You're not the artist. You're there to have a good attitude. I mean, this sounds corny, but it's really true.
Yeah.
You're there to have a good attitude, play music, get along with everybody, and when you're not playing and you're traveling in the bus, you need to be able to. You need to hang out. You need to hang out and get into other people's lives and what they have to say. And there's an awesome thing about that. Playing music, is a brotherhood, and you get into where the people that you're traveling with, they're your family, in a lot of ways. Like with the Chesney thing, he calls it his road family, and the reason all those people have been there all those years with him is they're a family, and if somebody starts being a prick, it's not going to go well. You have to sort of tuck that in. And I think that's a good trait to develop, And so
it's so important. That's been my experience so far is the same way. Most people I've played with have become really close friends.
Yeah.
Whether or not, people I haven't actually shared a stage with in 4 or 5 years, you still keep up with one another and are involved. And it's so much easier now with social media too. You can just send somebody a DM on Instagram or whatever and see what they're up to.
And I would bet if you're at a law firm, same deal. Or if you're working at Apple and you're with a developing software with a group of guys, you may be a genius, but you got to be able to hang and talk about it, and that's just part of the gig.
Yeah,
it's part of life, really.
So, how did you get into producing records?
I got into producing records. I always wanted to produce records, and some of the early bands I was playing with in my early 20s, honestly, I felt like I was producing the record. I was coming up with the stuff and the arrangements, and a couple times somebody would say to me, you're producing this. I said, no, he's, and be respectful to whoever was doing it, but I felt like I had the ability to do that, and I was interested in it. So this same guy named Wally Wilson, he was in the King Snakes.
Yep.
He taught me how to write songs.
Yep.
He is this crazy Texas character who's half foghorn, leghorn, half. Did you ever see that movie, The Disciple, with Robert Duvall?
No.
He's that guy too.
Yeah.
He's this loudmouth character. But he's very Texas, like, boy, I tell you, he's just this crazy character. So anyways, so we're in this band, and we meet an A&R guy from Virgin Records who comes to Nashville. And he comes to Monday night and sees our band playing. He's a guy named Aaron Jacobus. He's an A&R guy. And he comes and he sees our band play, and we go have breakfast with him the next morning. And this is going to sound really nuts, he was assigned Joan Baez. Joan Baez got signed to Virgin. The person that signed Joan Baez of Virgin. It's a typical story. Left Virgin Records.
Yep.
He's a rock dude. Aaron
Yeah.
Jacobus was a kind of alternative rock dude, and he's assigned to. Aaron had something to do with the Chili Peppers getting signed, and so he's assigned to Joan Baez, and we're having breakfast with him, and he says, I've been assigned Joan Baez. What am I? I don't know anything about Joan Baez. And Wally, we're sitting there. Wally goes, I know all about Joan Baez. We're your guys.
Yeah.
And he's looking at me going, we're your guys.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at him going like, what do you mean? Like, I'm the guy too? And so a week later, and she needed songs. So he's a songwriter. So a week later, we get on a plane to San Francisco, and and also we had our King Snake's little record, we had sort of produced it.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of, we made this little record, and he liked the A&R guy liked the sound of it. So a week later, we are flying to San Francisco, going to Joan Baez's house, and we're writing songs with Joan Baez, and we hit it off with her, and we decided we were going to hire the Neville Brothers rhythm section.
Yeah.
And we came to the studio in Nashville, and we were producing Joan Baez. I produced 2 records on her. One was nominated for a Grammy. That's kind of how I started. And it was because of this, I would never have done that on my own.
Right.
And this guy, Wally, was going like, we're producing, and he'd say, Joan Baez. I said, no, it's Joan Baez. No, Joan Baez. It's just kind of this Texas country guy. And so we made 2 records with her. Then we produced the guy, Mickey Thomas, who was in the Starship. That stuff never came out. And then I started producing records. I produced a guy named Edwin McCain.
Yeah.
We had a platinum record.
South Carolina cat.
Yeah. We had a big record with him. And then I was producing a lot of bands. And then I got hired to produce some Nashville records. So I just slowly, I don't even really know how it happened. It's really, so here's another thing when you're asking how to get into stuff. As long as it's something that isn't stupid to do, just say yes.
Yeah.
They say, you want to do this? Go, I'll give it a try. Why not? Like if you're interested in producing records, you may not, somebody is looking for somebody, you just say, hey, let me come over to my basement, because I've heard those tracks that you make at the starting of your YouTube clips, and those tracks sound great.
Thanks, man.
And it's like, that's production. So you should just have someone come down to your basement and just do it.
That's a thing that I'm trying to get into. We were walking around your home studio here a minute ago, and it's like, this is exactly what I want, is to have this place so that I can start doing that kind of stuff. There's something about being in the studio and in that environment, the creation process, throwing ideas against the wall, seeing what sticks, and then the whole thing of walking into the studio in the morning with nothing and walking out having something that didn't exist when the day started.
It's an amazing feeling.
It's incredible.
It's just, it's actually, I'm really producing more than I'm doing anything else right now. Even though I'm playing a fair amount of gigs, I'm really producing a bunch of records and the soundtrack to this, to a film. And I just love it, and there's mountains to climb.
Yeah.
You might turn in something and you listen to it and you go like, what was I thinking? It's terrible. Or you think it's great and you play for them and they go like, we completely don't like this, and you just climb the next mountain.
Yeah.
You just get back on the saddle.
Man, that's some really good advice. As a guitar player, how have you seen this world and this industry change over the last 40 years in terms of, on the internet, I see this all the time. There's this big discussion of, guitar is dead, or it's no longer culturally relevant, or there's no more guitar heroes. I don't personally believe that, but as someone who's been in the game for a while doing this, what do you think about guitar as a whole and where it's at?
It's not what it used to be. And I mean, the guitar player is the superstar, and the session player is the superstar session player. That kind of doesn't exist as much anymore. And I think in a way it's been healthy because now guitar is just another piece of the sonic puzzle. And I think it means that you really have to be great at your craft. It's like you're the keyboard player and the guitar player, they're all sort of equal now, as opposed to the guitar was sort of the above everybody else for a while. I don't think that exists anymore. And I think that the thing that's happened in the last bunch of years, in Nashville especially, is it's been too effect driven. And man, I mean, I love effects. They're everywhere. Yeah. And I think that the thing of being able to just take a guitar, it's like all the records that I'm enamored of, this from the late 60s and early 70s, the kind of golden age of record making, they just plugged into the amp and they just came up with these musical parts, and I know that gear is important and you have to modernize your sound, but I think to make sure that it's about the actual performance on the instrument. I think if I've done anything where I've screwed up in the last few years is I've been too dependent on effects.
Yeah.
As a crutch, and I have to really watch that and make sure that I'm just playing music and not playing effects,
That's a really good point. I don't hear enough players talk about that. I'm the same way. I love effects and I love gear. For years I played in the contemporary Christian worship scene in Atlanta, like the mega church scene, and that is very heavily effect driven. In a lot of ways, I think it's done well in that the effect is part of the part, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of crucial in that way, but it does cause you to sort of lose connection with your instrument in a way.
It does. It's a trick bag. And, I've done this thing playing live, and I have a pedal board when I play live because I have to, it's a service industry. I can't make it about me, and I have to get sounds, and I have to really get some different sounds at a reasonable volume. That's the other thing that we need effects for now is that it used to be you could play so freaking loud that you didn't need any of that stuff. You can't do that anymore. And we also know that's an unhealthy thing to do.
Yeah.
And so, but in touring the past few years, I try to do as little guitar switches as I can, because I got a video of Keith Richards on the Exile on Main Street.
Yep.
He plays the Stratocaster the whole time.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Or Clapton in Cream. He had the 335 or whatever guitar he was using, then the SG. And so I've gotten into this thing, unless it's a tuning or a specific thing, a 12-string or whatever, I'm going to play almost the whole show. I'm going to try to play one guitar.
Yeah.
And use, I'll have something to hit for solos because I just don't have a stack of Marshalls behind me.
Yeah.
I'm not able to do that, so I'll have something to turn on for solos, but I try to do as little of the effects playing live and just play music.
Yeah.
That's been a good thing to do.
There's something about a guitar plugged into an amp and the limitation that has coming from the effect, and I experienced this kind of, maybe it was the universe trying to teach me a lesson, but in London this past summer, we flew over there with Noah it was Nashville meets London, this festival, Americana festival they were doing. And on the way, TSA decided that my pedal board would be safer if it was dismantled.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a quick throw and go festival setting, no sound check. And I luckily had picked a really good backline amp. It was one of the early 90s AC30s, the Korg era.
Are great.
The ones that Marshall built.
Yeah.
Those are the ones with the blues
amps
in it, you know? And so I just plugged my Novo straight into it and just on the Brilliant Top Boost channel, turned it almost all the way up and just rode the volume knob.
Yeah.
And some of the best sounds, that was one of the best shows I think I've ever played, because it was, it got me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So in a weird way, I was focusing more on what I was doing.
Yeah.
And B, the tone, the response, because the amp was loud, but the response between the guitar and the amp was not what it would have been if my pedal board had been in the equation.
Yeah. I totally hear that. Yeah.
And since that gig, I've actually been paring down my stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't need all this, I don't need it all.
I think as much great stuff as there is, I think there's some delay and reverbs that are just essential.
Yeah.
They just sound so good. You got to have them. But I think we're coming out of the effect pedal phase. Feels a little bit like that.
Yeah.
So it's probably good. Things change and change is good. And, and there's no rules and,
So looking back on your career so far, if you could go back and tell your younger self, 21, 22-year-old self, something to do differently, what would you do?
Numero uno. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Numero uno. Don't get plastered on the gig and have playing through 2 amps on stun and lay on the floor with your head up against the speaker cabinet, making feedback, thinking you're Jimi Hendrix, and then jumping off the amp into the drums and then drinking some more and putting your head inside the kick drum and playing a solo and then throwing your guitar and trying to catch it. And do not do that.
Okay.
Let me repeat that. Big mistake. I was known for a number of years as being a wild man, as much as I'm not a wild man. Right. And it wasn't, drinking was the peripheral thing. I was never in AA or anything like that, but I definitely played so fucking loud all the time because I wanted to be heard, and that's the way I got my sound. And I wasn't using hardly any pedals. I just had these amps on stun. Not the greatest idea.
Yeah.
Now that I'm in my 60s.
Yeah.
Probably I would go back and
wear your earplugs on the gig.
Yes.
Yeah, protect the hearing.
Yeah.
It's a serious thing, man. I mean, I have some tinnitus.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's at 29, 30, it's not super prevalent, but it's enough now that I'm more conscious.
Yeah.
About the stuff.
Yeah, I think that I wish, though that's one of the things I wish. I see some young guys that I play with, and I see them being real protective of their ears, and I just think that's the most awesome thing. And we just didn't know.
Yeah.
We just it was rock and roll. So we were. I was always getting bitched at for playing too loud. It's like, what? This is my sound, man. And it's like that's probably not such a great idea.
Yeah. Well, I get bitched at for playing too loud too, and I'm not actually playing that loud. It's just the stage volume wars are a real thing. We were talking about the aux earlier. It's like you kind of have to do that now, man. Everyone
you really need to do that. Yeah.
Everyone, even the bigger venues and the smaller venues, you just have to. You can't play loud anymore.
Yeah, I was saying before we started. I was saying that we're playing stadiums with Chesney every Saturday is a stadium show when he's out, and the bigger the place, the less loud you can play because of phasing in the microphones, and it just spreads out. So, I mean, even though like a 20-watt amp in a stadium, it needs to be mic'd.
Yeah.
But as far as on stage, it's this weird phenomena where I can play at Douglas Corner and I can play louder there, like the sound is compressed and contained.
Yeah.
But when you get on a big stage, and because of the amount of microphones that are being used and getting into the singer's mic and the wind, and all those, because we do outdoor shows, you just don't play as loud.
Are you on ears?
We're on ears, and I love being on in-ears.
Yeah.
I think in-ears have kept me in the game because they're essentially earplugs.
Yeah.
And I wear my pack low.
Yeah.
My ears do not do well anymore at high volume.
Yeah.
I just kind of can't hear stuff at high volume.
Yeah.
So with the in-ears, I have these really good in-ears, and there's this. I use JH Audio.
Yeah.
And there's a little wrap that you can also get from them, and you wrap the end of your in-ears, and it makes a super tight fit, so no sound is getting in. So I can wear my pack pretty low.
Yeah.
It's been really good.
That's the thing, man, for guys that are using it, because I've been on in-ears basically the whole time I've been playing, and for a long time I would run my pack super hot, and I think that's a big portion of the hearing damage I've done so far is because of in-ear monitors.
Yeah,
they're kind of a false sense of security in that way.
It's a false sense of security. Yeah, I agree.
You have to watch it, man.
Yeah,
it's really important because tinnitus, that constant ringing, sucks.
Yeah, I think I was 27 when my ears started to ring. I actually remember. I remember the night it happened. In the middle of the night, I woke up and go like, oh shit, my ears are ringing.
Yeah.
And it's been, and they still, like right now, I don't hear them ringing.
Yeah.
It's very mild.
Yeah.
Because I've protected them since then.
Yeah.
But I have to really watch my ears,
Yeah.
Be careful.
Yeah. Man. So again, going back to advice for younger players, what would you tell the younger guys now getting into this who want to have a sustainable long-term career? We talked about the hang and that being extremely important, but what else would you tell someone who wants to do this, long-term?
Here's what I did. And I think this still applies is that, and it's hanging out, but it's a different kind of hanging out. I would go to where everybody was playing, and I would hang out and meet people. And I was fortunate because right when I moved to town, I got in a band that was kind of popular. So it wasn't super awkward. I'd show up at the 5 spot and not know anybody. It's like I knew some people because I was in a band that was kind of popular. But I think you go where young people play and you immerse yourself in that. It's, because I've had a lot of people have asked me that, and the real truth is that you don't hang out with me or my contemporaries because we're older. You hang out with the guys who are going to be, like say at the Basement East, there's on a Tuesday night, the guys from Jason Isbell Band are playing a gig and they're doing I'm just making this up.
Yeah.
They're doing the whole Pink Floyd record, Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to be down there hanging out.
Yeah.
You just go down there and hang out.
Yeah.
And you meet people, and then you take there is no bad gig. You take every single gig. If you're not doing anything on a night, take the gig.
Yeah.
Take every gig that you can get and invent gigs. Which I kind of feel like is what you did with your YouTube channel. You kind of invented this gig, and you make those songs at the front of it, and people see you play. And that's how I reached out to you. Is someone turned me on to that, and I watched it, or I saw a thing of R.J. Ronquillo I never met, and thought this guy knows the blues. He's amazing. Yeah. And then there was a link to you, or there was something about you, and then I looked at your thing in there. So you sort of invented that gig. So I feel like even though I'm not an expert on this, in this era, the generation that you're in, having a YouTube channel, that's a gig, and people see you.
Dude, I have become kind of an evangelist for this with a lot of my musician friends. Not all of them, because it's a weird thing that I don't know that everyone is cut out for, regardless of their talent or skill set. It's not about that. I think it's a certain type of personality that is willing to do this kind of thing. But you're right. Like I consciously started making those type of videos for a few reasons. One, I wanted essentially to use it as an excuse to get some reps in writing and mixing and formulating ideas and finishing something. Yeah. Which I was really bad at before, not finishing stuff. And as a way to kind of show the people out there, like, yeah, I can play and write. And, because when I first started it, my gig had ended, and part of it was like, well, maybe somebody in Nashville or whatever will run into this and want to hire me. And it's become a completely different thing that I couldn't have foreseen before that. But I've started telling my musician friends, there's a guy in Atlanta, Michael Westbrook, who's a fantastic guitar player, touring guy, plays with David Crowder, multi-instrumentalist, and he's just now started out because of watching my channel. And it's you kind of have to have that presence online nowadays, I feel like, to not really do this. There's plenty of players out there that are doing killer stuff without having a presence online, but
I think it's important. I think it's really made a difference. I mean, that's and you even look at Tim Pierce. That's all he does now anymore. He does. I did a panel with him and got to know him a little bit, and he's an amazing guy. He just says, "I've got this second career," But I think it's a great way, because the other thing about it is when I was young. I hate this when I was young shit, like I'm the old guy, but I am the old guy. So there weren't that many bands.
Yeah.
I was playing in town with 3 or 4 different bands, 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
With their songwriter. But now there's so many bands. It's hard to get a slot at the Basement East. But if you have your YouTube channel and you're using social media in the right way, that's your gig.
Yeah.
That's almost better,
Yeah.
So here's something else that I'm thinking to mention. The other thing that I also learned the hard way is that as far as getting gigs is diversify what you play. I mean, we all want to play electric guitar. Be a great acoustic player.
Yeah.
Get a banjo and learn how to play some banjo licks. I also play pedal steel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very good, but I'll work on a record over here, and they say, "Can you just put one steel part on?" I said, "If you'll give me an hour, if you're okay, I'll figure it out." And I think that, if I was young, once again, I'm making this up, a scenario. If I was a young East Nashville Americana artist, and I'm looking for a guitar player, and the guy goes, I also play a little bit of steel. I think, wow, I want you, or I can play mando.
Yeah.
I've got a guitar mando that's kind of a fake mando, but it's a mandolin.
Yeah.
And I'll play some of that. I think, and also singing background, being able to sing a little bit of background, is really important. I think that is as important as your main instrument. You need to be with a guy that they want to have you there. And then the other, I'm drinking a lot of coffee, so I'm just kind of
That's okay.
Away.
Keep going.
But I'm thinking about all this stuff.
Don't stop.
As you're saying this, you probably edit and use.
No.
10%
I want all
of
this. No, I want all this.
The other super important thing that I also learned in the most embarrassing way is that don't just be the lead player. No one gives a shit about how great your solos are, but the guy who's the great rhythm player that locks with the drummer and the bass player and drummer, they sound better because you're playing in time with them. They are going to want you on the gig. And also we're in the era where lead guitar is not as important as it used to be, but being a rhythm player is, it's like I play in this one band where one guy is the lead player and his rhythm playing is not that good. And it really does not go well for him.
Yeah.
He's incredible, does all these amazing solos, going like, wow, that's amazing. But when it comes to, and also the singers are going to they don't care about the lead player. They want the rhythm guy that gives them their space, and the guy knows how to work around the lyric like we were talking about. So playing rhythm is probably one of the most important things,
Everything you just said, too, will also make you better at your instrument. It'll make you a better guitar player. When I learned how to play bass, I became a better guitar player.
Yeah.
Because I started listening to music differently. It was the same thing of now my thing I'm working on this year is singing, trying to learn how to sing background vocals, and holy shit, it's hard.
Yeah, I'm doing a little bit of singing too, and I haven't sung in a number of years.
Yeah,
and I actually went. My wife is a singer, and I hooked up with her vocal coach and had him show me a couple things because I needed to. I have to sing a little bit on this gig that I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm not great, but it really helped me. To get through it.
Yeah, and playing all those other instruments. Pedal steel's on my list of things that I want to, for the exact same reason. Like I want to be more self-sufficient as a producer and be able to I have this sound and I want to put it down now, and I don't want to have to call somebody else in to be able to do it. So things like pedal steel, mandolin, more slide stuff.
Your slide playing is really good. I've kind of practiced along to some of your slide stuff. It is freaking great.
Thank you, man.
I just made a record this summer with Allison Moore.
Yeah.
And she has a book that just came out. It's about her family. She had a tragic family history, and she wrote a song cycle. So the record is with the book, and really, it's one of my favorite records I've done. But the focus and the budget was more about her book, and we had a very limited budget. And so we'd worked together before, and she said, "Well, we're going to make this. Why don't you, can I come to your place and just you and me?
Yeah.
I don't have the money to. We can maybe bring a drummer in for a couple of days, but you and I have to do everything.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, the budget is so small, and the amount of time I have to do this." I think they finished the book, and then she wrote these songs, and at the last minute, they decided, well, we're going to put out this CD with the book. So what I'm getting around to saying is that because I could play steel and I can play bass and I can engineer, and some of the songs we started out, it was just going to be just an acoustic, just her playing, but the songs were so good that the songs demanded that more things. It was selling the song short,
Right.
So because and I'm not trying to say like I'm great at it, but
Right.
just because I had the ability to play bass and I could play steel and we could do some things. We actually have a record that's fairly fleshed out.
That's so important, man.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
And it's
really
fun.
a great experience.
Learning new stuff is fun.
It was a lot of fun.
know?
Yeah. And if you don't claim to be an expert, you kind of have an out.
Yeah.
You say,
This
I'm
is
not very
me.
good.
Yeah. This is totally true. And it's exciting. I remember when I got my first bass about 4 or 5 years ago, I was excited because with guitar sometimes you get in a rut and you're kind of like you're tired of hearing yourself play the same shit over and over again. So when you get that new instrument in, you just like get all jazzed about playing
so
something
much fun.
new.
Yeah, and it informs the other things you do. Yeah,
it does
very much so.
So one last question, in production wise, what are some records? Like, just give me 2 or 3 that have come out in the last year that you are really vibing on and are kind of inspiring you for the next cycle?
Well, I'm working on developing the music for a movie that this guy Arash Amel is making. Mm-hmm. And he's a screenwriter from LA. And it's going to be shot here. And it's about a singer that comes here and meets this older African-American gentleman who is from West Africa. And he repairs jukeboxes. And but he loves the blues and Howlin' Wolf, and he loves Americana. And they go on this journey, and they're chased by ICE agents, and it's this whole. So we're developing the music for it because the girl is a singer-songwriter, but she gets influenced by this guy. So I've gotten turned. So what we're doing is kind of blues slide with African underpinnings. So I've been listening to all this African stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a band called Tinariwen, Tinariwen. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing, but their records are just fantastic. So I'm really into them right now. It's kind of blues, Delta blues, but it's very African. And these guys, they're Muslim Africans,
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're just amazing. So I'm listening to them a lot. Their newest record has a lot of collaborations on it. And so I like them. I like a band called Kruangbin, Kruangbhin. They have a song with Leon Bridges that I really like. I like the newest. They just won the Grammy. Vampire Weekend.
Oh yeah.
I love that record.
I haven't listened to that one
The
yet.
parts are so well played.
Yeah.
And they're difficult. It was one of those things like I come down in the morning and kind of play along and stuff. I'm listening to Vampire Weekend going like, that is really hard.
Yeah.
So I like them a lot.
I like Young the Giant for the same reason. I don't know if you're hip to them.
Yeah.
The guitar parts on those Young the Giant records
really
are
good,
incredible.
really different.
Yeah. And the way they work together, the two different players in that band are so different in their feel and their tone, but oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, and I still listen to every Radiohead record ever made. They're the inventiveness of the guitar playing is something I always go for.
Yeah, I think we're kindred spirits in that, like listening to a guitar part and hearing like, how did you come up with that? How did you get there from, just being in the studio and trying to find that same kind of thing?
Well, and that goes back to this thing, and I'll be brief, is that the main guitar player, Ed O'Brien, he does not have, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
What he has. And they have these things called Live from the Basement. Have you listened to those Live from the Basement?
No.
They're actually videos and recordings of them in their producer's basement where they make those records, and they replay the whole record. They've got 2 or 3 records, and it's called Live from the Basement. And the thing that you realize is that it's not a bunch of computerized effects. That's just how they sound.
Oh, that's so good.
That's just the way they play. You watch them play, and they're not editing, or they're just. And it sounds just like the record. Radiohead,
I'm sort of embarrassed to admit I'm relatively new to Radiohead. I think it was 2 years ago. I was on the road on like an 8-hour, in the back of the Sprinter van, and I just was like, I'm going to listen to OK Computer top to bottom, and it was an experience. It was the first time I'd ever done it, just like leaning with my head against the window, staring out the.
It's an amazing record. It kind of changed things. And the record after that, Kid A, it to me is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
There's not that much guitar on it.
Yeah.
But just but then the other thing I still listen to is old blues, because I'm just kind of a blues nerd, and I'm into Lightning Hopkins right now.
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of Lightning. I'm listening to my car right now.
Yeah. Man, we could talk about that all day.
Yeah.
Kenny, thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, you got it.
Thanks, dude. Huge thanks to Kenny for coming on the show, man. He really dropped some knowledge in that interview. Like I said at the beginning, he's really the type of musician that I want to be when I grow up. He's like the quintessential guitar player, producer, songwriter. He just does everything, man. And that is so cool to get to talk to guys like that and hear stories and share their knowledge and everything. So this probably won't be the last time he's featured on the podcast or on the YouTube channel, because he's got so much knowledge and wisdom to share that I feel kind of responsible for getting it out there when I can. So again, huge thanks to Kenny for coming on, and I'll have links to all of his social media stuff in the show notes, which you can find on my website, rhettshull.com. Under the podcast tab. And something new that I'm doing for the podcast this season is like opening a comments box section on the website, so you can leave your comments there if you like. So yeah, be sure to go check that out there. And now let's get on to one of my favorite parts of the whole podcasting thing, and that is the listener submitted original track. This is something we do every week here on the podcast, and it's where we feature an original song from one of you guys, the listeners, the subscribers. And this segment is sponsored by DistroKid. If you don't know DistroKid, they are a service that allows you to upload your original music, whether that be a single, an EP, or a full-length album, to all of the streaming services online: Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora. And it basically takes all the guesswork out of having to do that stuff yourself. They charge a flat yearly fee starting at $19.99 a year. And if you sign up through the URL, which is featured on the podcast page of my website, rhettshull.com/VIP/Rhett, you'll get 7% off your first year's membership to DistroKid. The thing I like about them is they've got a bunch of really cool features. Probably chief among them is the song split, the rate split feature. So if you are working with a co-creator or a co-writer or a co-producer, any number of people that share in the writing credits or the royalty credits of your song, you can basically tell DistroKid who gets what percentage, and it will automatically split the revenue up for you, so you don't have to worry about that. And you can go back and change it at any time. for whatever reason. And I think that's a really cool feature. So thanks to DistroKid for sponsoring this segment of the episode. Now, if you want to submit your original music for this segment, you can email a track to backstagejournalpod@gmail.com. And in the email, include a little write-up about, who you are or your band, why you wrote the song, maybe what you used to write and record the song, all that fun stuff. So this week's song comes from Evan Hunsberger, and he's the manager for Charlottesville, Virginia-based singer-songwriter named Will Overman. He says, I'm reaching out to submit Will's new single, Something to Hold. It's coming out February 14th. Actually, it just came out on Friday. I get these emails, and I have a backlog of them, so maybe we need to do an episode that's just listener-submitted tracks, which would actually be pretty cool. So about Will Overman and Something to Hold. With a lighthearted feel, Will bears his heart and reminds listeners of the significance of supporting your partner through every season, something Will is no stranger to. Back in late 2017, Will's wife was diagnosed with cancer for the second time. Through cancer treatments, traveling the world, moving from Virginia to North Carolina, and struggling to find his identity in a post-college world, Will and his wife know just how important it is to have that deep, unconditional support and love from your partner. Incredibly sorry to hear about your wife, Will. That really sucks. I hope everything's going well with the treatment, and hope you guys pull through. But we're going to listen to this song, Something to Hold. Thanks for submitting it, Evan, and thanks to Will for writing and recording it. And I'll try and find Will's social media stuff as well and link that in the show notes. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this week's episode. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to podcasts. Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, all that stuff. And I will see you guys next week. Sorry, that's my plumbing. In case you forgot, my studio is in an HVAC closet. Thanks, everyone, and see you next week.
She's the morning, she's the first light of day, shining through my window, brightening me away. She's the t-shirt that is mine, she's my intention that is hers. So when she's reaching for the colors, don't confuse her for a girl. Body that I hold, and she's standing at the stove. Her head and her shoulders frame my favorite window. She is a valley down the back, a spine, a river, my head and the man, searching hard for something beautiful. Oh, she is the promised land. She gives me something, gives me something I can hold on to. She gives me love, 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 like a summer afternoon. I give her something, I give her something she can hold on to. I give her love, 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 it's all she needs to make it through. Wide awake with hesitation, college, tried fit to be tired, an outlier in an aggregation. But now she's waiting, oh, waiting tables at the Steak and Chicken. But if she could see what she means to me, then she'd have no reservation. She gives me something, she gives me something I can hold on to. She gives me love, love, like a summer's afternoon. I give her something, I give her something she can hold on to. I give her love, love, love. Love, I give her love, oh, I give her love, I give her love. I give her something she can hold on to. 3